Poems Every Child Should Know. Edited by Mary E. Burt. Section 19. Read for LibriVox.org by Kara Schallenberg. This section contains two poems, The Sandpiper and Lady Clare. Part 2 continued. The Sandpiper. The Sandpiper by Celia Thaxter, 1836 to 1894, is placed here because a goodly percentage of the children who read it want to learn it. Across the lonely beach we flit, one little sandpiper and fast I gather bit by bit the scattered driftwood, bleached and dry. The wild waves reach their hands for it, the wild wind raves, the tide runs high, as up and down the beach we flit, one little sandpiper and I. Above our heads the sullen clouds scud black and swift across the sky. Like silent ghosts in misty shrouds stand out the white lighthouses high. Almost as far as eye can reach I see the close-reefed vessels fly. As fast we flit along the beach, one little sandpiper and I. I watch him as he skims along, uttering his sweet and mournful cry. He starts not at my fitful song, nor flash of fluttering drapery. He has no thought of any wrong, he scans me with a fearless eye. Stanch friends are we, well tried and strong, the little sandpiper and I. Comrade, where wilt thou be to-night, when the lucid storm breaks furiously? My driftwood fire will burn so bright. To what warm shelter canst thou fly? I do not fear for thee, though wroth the tempest rushes through the sky. For are we not God's children both, thou, little sandpiper, and I? Celia Thaxter. Lady Clare. Girls always love Lady Clare and the Lord of Burleigh. They like to think that it is enough to be a splendid woman without title or wealth. They want to be loved, if they are loved at all, for their good hearts and graces of mind. Tennyson, 1809 to 1892, makes this point repeatedly through his poems. It was the time when lilies blow, and clouds are highest up in air. Lord Ronald brought a lily-white doe to give his cousin, Lady Clare. I trow they did not part in scorn. Lovers long betrothed were they. They too will wed the morrow morn. God's blessing on the day. He does not love me for my birth, nor for my lands so broad and fair. He loves me for my own true worth, and that is well, said Lady Clare. In there came old Alice the nurse, said, "Who was this that went from thee?" "It was my cousin," said Lady Clare. "To-morrow he weds with me." "O God be thanked," said Alice the nurse, "that all comes round so just and fair. Lord Ronald is heir of all your lands, and you are not the Lady Clare." "Are ye out of your mind, my nurse," said Lady Clare, "that ye speak so wild?" "As God's above," said Alice the nurse, "I speak the truth. You are my child." "The old Earl's daughter died at my breast. I speak the truth, as I live by bread. I buried her like my own sweet child, and put my child in her stead." "Falsely, falsely have ye done, O mother," she said, "if this be true, to keep the best man under the sun so many years from his due." "Nay now, my child," said Alice the nurse, "but keep the secret for your life, and all you have will be Lord Ronald's when you are man and wife." "If I'm a beggar born," she said, "I will speak out, for I dare not lie. Pull off the brooch of gold, and fling the diamond necklace by." "Nay now, my child," said Alice the nurse, "but keep the secret all ye can." She said, "Not so, but I will know if there be any faith in man." "Nay now, what faith?" said Alice the nurse. "The man will cleave unto his right." "And he shall have it," the lady replied, "though I should die to-night." "Yet give one kiss to your mother dear. Alas, my child, I sinned for thee." "O mother, mother, mother," she said, "so strange it seems to me." Yet here's a kiss for my mother dear, if this be so, and lay your hand upon my head, and bless me, mother, ere I go." She clad herself in a russet gown, she was no longer Lady Clare. She went by dale, and she went by down, with a single rose in her hair. The lily-white doe Lord Ronald had brought leapt up from where she lay, dropped her head in the maiden's hand, and followed her all the way. Down stepped Lord Ronald from his tower. "O Lady Clare, you shame your worth! Why come you dressed like a village maid, that are the flower of the earth?" "If I come dressed like a village maid, I am but as my fortunes are. I am a beggar born," she said, "and not the Lady Clare." "Play me no tricks," said Lord Ronald, "for I am yours in word and deed. Play me no tricks," said Lord Ronald, "your riddle is hard to read." Oh, and proudly stood she up, her heart within her did not fail. She looked into Lord Ronald's eyes, and told him all her nurse's tale. He laughed a laugh of merry scorn, he turned and kissed her where she stood. "If you are not the heiress born, and I," said he, "the next in blood, if you are not the heiress born, and I," said he, "the lawful heir, we two will wed to-morrow morn, and you shall still be Lady Clare." Alfred Tennyson. End of Section 19. Read by Kara Schallenberg on October 16th, 2006 in Oceanside, California. Poems Every Child Should Know. Edited by Mary E. Burt. Section 20. Read for LibriVox.org by Kara Schallenberg. This section contains one poem, The Lord of Burleigh. Part 2. Continued. The Lord of Burleigh. In her ear he whispers gaily, "If my heart by signs can tell, Maiden, I have watched thee daily, and I think thou lov'st me well." She replies in accents fainter, "There is none I love like thee." He is but a landscape painter, and a village maiden she. He to lips that fondly falter presses his without reproof, leads her to the village altar, and they leave her father's roof. "I can make no marriage present, little can I give my wife. Love will make our cottage pleasant, and I love thee more than life." They by parks and lodges going, see the lordly castles stand, summer woods about them blowing made a murmur in the land. From deep thought himself he rouses, says to her that loves him well, "Let us see these handsome houses where the wealthy nobles dwell." So she goes by him attended, hears him lovingly converse, sees whatever fair and splendid lay betwixt his home and hers. Parks with oak and chestnut shady, parks and ordered gardens great, ancient homes of lord and lady, built for pleasure and for state. All he shows her makes him dearer, evermore she seems to gaze on that cottage growing nearer, where they twain will spend their days. Oh, but she will love him truly, he shall have a cheerful home, she will order all things duly, when beneath his roof they come. Thus her heart rejoices greatly, till a gateway she discerns, with armorial bearings stately, and beneath the gate she turns. Sees a mansion more majestic than all those she saw before. Many a gallant gay domestic bows before him at the door. And they speak in gentle murmur when they answer to his call, while he treads with footstep firmer, leading on from hall to hall. And while now she wanders blindly, nor the meaning can divine, proudly turns he round and kindly, "All of this is mine and thine." Here he lives in state and bounty, Lord of Burleigh, fair and free. Not a lord in all the county is so great a lord as he. All at once the colour flushes her sweet face from brow to chin, as it were with same she blushes, and her spirit changed within. Then her countenance all over pale again as death did prove, but he clasped her like a lover, and he cheered her soul with love. So she strove against her weakness, though at times her spirits sank, shaped her heart with woman's meekness to all duties of her rank. And a gentle consort made he, and her gentle mind was such that she grew a noble lady, and the people loved her much. But a trouble weighed upon her, and perplexed her night and morn, with the burden of an honour unto which she was not born. Faint she grew, and ever fainter, as she murmured, "Oh, that he were once more that landscape painter, which did win my heart from me!" So she drooped and drooped before him, fading slowly from his side. 3 fair children first she bore him, then before her time she died. Weeping, weeping late and early, walking up and pacing down, deeply mourned the Lord of Burleigh, Burleigh House by Stamford town. And he came to look upon her, and he looked at her and said, "Bring the dress and put it on her that she wore when she was wed." Then her people, softly treading, bore to earth her body, dressed in the dress that she was wed in, that her spirit might have rest. Alfred Tennyson. End of section 20. Read by Kara Schallenberg on October 16th, 2006, in Oceanside, California. Poems Every Child Should Know, edited by Mary E. Burt. Section 21. Read for LibriVox.org by Kara Schallenberg. This section contains just one poem, Hiawatha's Childhood. Hiawatha needs no commendation. Hundreds of thousands of children in our land know snatches of it. It is a children's poem, every line of it. One summer in Boston, more than 50,000 people went to take a peep at the poet's house. By the shores of Gitche-Gumee, by the shining Big Sea water, stood the wigwam of Nokomis, daughter of the moon, Nokomis. Dark behind it rose the forest, rose the black and gloomy pine trees, rose the firs with cones upon them. Bright before it beat the water, beat the clear and sunny water, beat the shining Big Sea water. There the wrinkled old Nokomis nursed the little Hiawatha, rocked him in his linden cradle, bedded soft in moss and rushes, safely bound with reindeer sinews, stilled his fretful wail by saying, "Hush, the naked bear will hear thee," lulled him into slumber, singing, "Eh-wah-yeh, my little owlet, who is this that lights the wigwam, with his great eyes lights the wigwam? Eh-wah-yeh, my little owlet." Many things Nokomis taught him of the stars that shine in heaven, showed him Ishkudah, the comet, Ishkudah with fiery tresses, showed the death dance of the spirits, warriors with their plumes and war clubs, flaring far away to northward in the frosty nights of winter, showed the broad white road in heaven, pathway of the ghosts, the shadows, running straight across the heavens, crowded with the ghosts, the shadows. At the door on summer evenings sat the little Hiawatha, heard the whispering of the pine trees, heard the lapping of the water, sounds of music, words of wonder. "Minnie-wawa," said the pine trees. "Mudway-oshka," said the water. Saw the firefly, Wah-wah-taysee, flitting through the dusk of evening, with a twinkle of its candle lighting up the brakes and bushes, and he sang the song of children, sang the song Nokomis taught him. "Wah-wah-taysee, little firefly, little flitting white-fire insect, little dancing white-fire creature, light me with your little candle, ere upon my bed I lay me, ere in sleep I close my eyelids." Saw the moon rise from the water, rippling rounding from the water, saw the flecks and shadows on it, whispered, "What is that, Nokomis?" And the good Nokomis answered, "Once a warrior, very angry, seized his grandmother and threw her up into the sky at midnight. Right against the moon he threw her. 'Tis her body that you see there." Saw the rainbow in the heaven, in the eastern sky, the rainbow, whispered, "What is that, Nokomis?" And the good Nokomis answered, "'Tis the heaven of flowers you see there, all the wild flowers of the forest, all the lilies of the prairie, when on earth they fade and perish, blossom in that heaven above us." When he heard the owls at midnight, hooting, laughing in the forest, "What is that?" he cried in terror. "What is that?" he said, "Nokomis?" And the good Nokomis answered, "That is but the owl and owlet talking in their native language, talking, scolding at each other." Then the little Hiawatha learned of every bird its language, learned their names and all their secrets, how they built their nests in summer, where they hid themselves in winter, talked with them whene'er he met them, called them Hiawatha's chickens. Of all beasts he learned the language, learned their names and all their secrets, how the beavers built their lodges, where the squirrels hid their acorns, how the reindeer ran so swiftly, why the rabbit was so timid, talked with them whene'er he met them, called them Hiawatha's brothers. Henry W. Longfellow. End of section 21. Read by Kara Schallenberg on October 19th, 2006 in Oceanside, California. Poems Every Child Should Know. Edited by Mary E. Burt. Section 22. Read for LibriVox.org by Kara Schallenberg. This section contains the following poems: I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud, John Barleycorn, and A Life on the Ocean Wave. Part 2 continued. I wandered lonely as a cloud. The daffodil is here out of compliment to a splendid school and a splendid teacher at Poughkeepsie. I found the pupils learning the poem, the teacher having placed a bunch of daffodils in a vase before them. It was a charming lesson. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high o'er vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils, beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. Continuous as the stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way, they stretched in never-ending line along the margin of a bay. 10,000 saw I at a glance, tossing their heads in sprightly dance. The waves beside them danced, but they outdid the sparkling waves in glee. A poet could not but be gay in such a jocund company. I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth the show to me had brought. For oft, when on my couch I lie in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye which is the bliss of solitude, and then my heart with pleasure fills, and dances with the daffodils. William Wordsworth. John Barleycorn. John Barleycorn is a favorite with boys because it pictures a successful struggle. One editor has made a temperance poem of it, mistaking its true intent. The poem is a strong expression of a plowman's love for a hardy, food-giving grain which has sprung to life through his efforts. There were 3 kings into the east, 3 kings both great and high, and they ha' sworn a solemn oath John Barleycorn should die. They took a plough and ploughed him down, put clods upon his head, and they ha' sworn a solemn oath John Barleycorn was dead. But the cheerful spring came kindly on, and showers began to fall. John Barleycorn got up again, and sore surprised them all. The sultry suns of summer came, and he grew thick and strong, his head well armed wi' pointed spears, that no one should him wrong. The sober autumn entered mild, and he grew wan and pale. His bending joints and drooping head showed he began to fail. His colour sickened more and more, he faded into age. And then his enemies began to show their deadly rage. They took a weapon long and sharp, and cut him by the knee, then tied him fast upon a cart, like a rogue for forgery. They laid him down upon his back, and cudgelled him full sore. They hung him up before the storm, and turned him o'er and o'er. They filled up then a darksome pit with water to the brim, and heaved in poor John Barleycorn to let him sink or swim. They laid him out upon the floor to work him further woe, and still as signs of life appeared they tossed him to and fro. They wasted o'er a scorching flame the marrow of his bones, but a miller used him worst of all, he crushed him 'tween two stones. And they have taken his very heart's blood, and drunk it round and round, and still the more and more they drank, their joy did more abound. Robert Burns. A Life on the Ocean Wave. A Life on the Ocean Wave by Epes Sargent, 1813-80, gives the swing and motion of the water of the great ocean. Children remember it almost unconsciously after hearing it read several times. A life on the ocean wave, a home on the rolling deep, where the scattered waters rave, and the winds their revels keep. Like an eagle caged I pine on this dull unchanging shore. Oh, give me the flashing brine, the spray, and the tempest's roar. Once more on the deck I stand of my own swift gliding craft. Set sail, farewell to the land, the gale follows fair abaft. We shoot through the sparkling foam like an ocean bird set free. Like the ocean bird, our home we'll find far out on the sea. The land is no longer in view, the clouds have begun to frown, but with a stout vessel and crew we'll say, let the storm come down, and the song of our hearts shall be, while the winds and the waters rave, a home on the rolling sea, a life on the ocean wave. Epes Sargent. End of section 22. Read by Kara Schallenberg on October 19th, 2006 in Oceanside, California. Poems Every Child Should Know, edited by Mary E. Burt. Section 23. Read for LibriVox.org by Kara Schallenberg. This section contains two poems, The Death of the Old Year and Abu Ben Adhem. Part 2 continued. The Death of the Old Year. It is customary every New Year's Eve in America to ring bells, fire guns, send up rockets, and in many other ways to show joy and gratitude that the old year has been so kind, and that the new year is so auspicious. The emphasis in Tennyson's poem is laid on gratitude for past benefits so easily forgotten, rather than upon the possible advantages of the unknown and untried future. Full knee-deep lies the winter snow, and the winter winds are wearily sighing. Toll ye the church bell sad and slow, and tread softly and speak low, for the old year lies a-dying. Old year, you must not die, you came to us so readily, you lived with us so steadily. Old year, you shall not die. He lieth still, he doth not move, he will not see the dawn of day. He hath no other life above, he gave me a friend and a true, true love, and the new year will take him away. Old year, you must not go, so long as you have been with us. Such joy as you have seen with us, old year, you shall not go. He frothed his bumpers to the brim, a jollier year we shall not see, but though his eyes are waxing dim, and though his foes speak ill of him, he was a friend to me. Old year, you shall not die, we did so laugh and cry with you, I've half a mind to die with you, old year, if you must die. He was full of joke and jest, but all his merry quips are o'er. To see him die across the waste, his son and heir doth ride post-haste, but he'll be dead before. Every one for his own, the night is starry and cold, my friend, and the new year, blithe and bold, my friend, comes up to take his own. How hard he breathes over the snow, I heard just now the crowing cock, the shadows flicker to and fro, the cricket chirps, the light burns low, 'tis nearly 12 o'clock. Shake hands before you die, old year, we'll dearly rue for you. What is it we can do for you? Speak out before you die. His face is growing sharp and thin. Alack, our friend is gone! Close up his eyes, tie up his chin, step from the corpse and let him in, that standeth there alone, and waiteth at the door. There's a new foot on the floor, my friend, and a new face at the door, my friend, a new face at the door. Alfred Tennyson. Abou Ben Adhem. Abou Ben Adhem has won its way to the popular heart because the brotherhood of man is the motto of this age. Abou Ben Adhem, may his tribe increase, awoke one night from a deep dream of peace, and saw within the moonlight in his room, making it rich and like a lily in bloom, an angel writing in a book of gold. Exceeding peace had made Ben Adhem bold, and to the presence in the room he said, "What writest thou?" The vision raised its head, and with a look made of all sweet accord, answered, "The names of those who love the Lord." "And is mine one?" said Abou. "Nay, not so," replied the angel. Abou spoke more low, but cheerily still, and said, "I pray thee, then, write me as one that loves his fellow men." The angel wrote and vanished. The next night it came again, with a great wakening light, and showed the names whom love of God had blessed, and lo, Ben Adhem's name led all the rest. Leigh Hunt. End of section 23, read by Kara Schallenberg on October 19th, 2006 in Oceanside, California. Poems Every Child Should Know, edited by Mary E. Burt. Section 24, read for LibriVox.org by Kara Schallenberg. This section contains just one poem, A Farmyard Song. Part 2, continued. Farmyard Song. A farmyard song was popular years ago with Burbank, the great reader. How the boys and girls loved it! The author, J.T. Trowbridge, born 1827, is a boy-hearted man, says John Burroughs. The poem is just as popular as it ever was. Over the hill the farm boy goes. His shadow lengthens along the land, a giant staff in a giant hand. In the poplar tree above the spring the katydid begins to sing. The early dews are falling. Into the stone heap darts the mink. The swallows skim the river's brink, and home to the woodland fly the crows, when over the hill the farm boy goes, cheerily calling, "Co, boss, co, boss, co, co, co." Farther, farther over the hill, faintly calling, calling still, "Co, boss, co, boss, co, co." Into the yard the farmer goes, with grateful heart at the close of day. Harness and chain are hung away, in the wagon shed stand yoke and plough, the straws in the stack, the hay in the mow. The cooling dews are falling. The friendly sheep his welcome bleat, the pigs come grunting to his feet. The whinnying mare her master knows, when into the yard the farmer goes, his cattle calling, "Co, boss, co, boss, co, co, co." While still the cowboy far away goes seeking those that have gone astray, "Co, boss, co, boss, co, co." Now to her task the milkmaid goes. The cattle come crowding through the gate, lowing, pushing, little and great, about the trough by the farmyard pump. The frolicsome yearlings frisk and jump, while the pleasant dews are falling. The new milch heifer is quick and shy, but the old cow waits with a tranquil eye, and the white stream into the bright pail flows, when to her task the milkmaid goes, soothingly calling, "So, boss, so, boss, so, so, so." The cheerful milkmaid takes her stool, and sits and milks in the twilight cool, saying, "So, so, boss, so, so." To supper at last the farmer goes. The apples are pared, the paper read, the stories are told, then all to bed. Without, the cricket's ceaseless song makes shrill the silence all night long. The heavy dews are falling. The housewife's hand has turned the lock. Drowsily ticks the kitchen clock. The household sinks to deep repose, but still in sleep the farm boy goes, singing, calling, Co, boss, co, co, co. And oft the milkmaid in her dreams drums in the pail with the flashing streams, murmuring, "So, boss, so." J.T. Trowbridge. End of section 24. Read by Kara Schallenberg on October 19th, 2006 in Oceanside, California. Poems Every Child Should Know, edited by Mary E. Burt. Section 25. Read for LibriVox.org by Kara Schallenberg. This section contains 2 poems, To a Mouse and To a Mountain Daisy. Part 2 continued. To a Mouse on turning up her nest with the plough, November, 1785. To a Mouse and To a Mountain Daisy by Robert Burns, 1759 to 1796, are the ineffable touches of tenderness that illumine the sturdy ploughman. The contrast between the strong man and the delicate flower or creature at his mercy makes tenderness in man a vital point in character. The lines To a Mouse seem by report to have been composed while Burns was actually ploughing. One of the poet's first editors wrote, John Blaine, who had acted as godsman to Burns, and who lived 60 years afterward, had a distinct recollection of the turning up of the mouse. Like a thoughtless youth as he was, he ran after the creature to kill it, but was checked and recalled by his master, who he observed became thereafter thoughtful and abstracted. Burns, who treated his servants with the familiarity of fellow labourers, soon afterward read the poem to Blaine. Wee, sleekit, cow'rin, timorous beastie, oh, what a panic's in thy breastie! Thou needna start away sae hasty, wi' bickerin' brattle. I wad be laith to rin and chase thee, wi' murderin' prattle. I'm truly sorry man's dominion has broken nature's social union, and justifies that ill opinion, which makes thee startle at me, thy poor earth-born companion, and fellow mortal. I doubtna, whiles, but thou may thieve, what then, poor beastie, thou maun live? A daemon icker in a thrave, sae sma' request. I'll get a blessin' wi' the lave, and never missed. Thy wee bit housie too in ruin, it's silly was the winds are strewin', and naething now too big a new ane, o' foggage green, and bleak December's winds ensuin', baith snell and keen. Thou saw the fields laid bare and waste, and weary winter comin' fast, and cosy here beneath the blast thou thought to dwell, till crash the cruel coulter passed out through thy cell. That wee bit heap o' leaves and stibble has cost thee mony a weary nibble. Now thou's turned out, for a' thy trouble, but house or hald, to thole the winter's sleety dribble and cranreuch cauld. But mousie, thou art no thy lane, in proving foresight may be vain. The best laid schemes o' mice and men gang aft agley, and leave us nought but grief and pain for promised joy. Still thou art blest, compared wi' me, the present only toucheth thee. But och, I backward cast my e'e on prospects drear, and forward, though I canna see, I guess and fear. Robert Burns. To a Mountain Daisy, on turning one down with the plough in April, 1786. Wee, modest, crimson-tipped flower, thou's met me in an evil hour, for I maun crush among the store thy slender stem. To spare thee now is past my power, thou bonny gem. Alas, it's no thy neighbour sweet, the bonny lark, companion meet, bending thee 'mong the dewy wheat, with speckled breast, when upward springing blithe to greet the purpling east. Cauld blew the bitter biting north upon thy early humble birth, yet cheerfully thou glinted forth amid the storm. Scarce reared above the parent earth thy tender form. The flaunting flowers our gardens yield, high sheltering woods and was maun shield, but thou beneath the random bield o' clod or stane, adorns the histy stibble field, unseen alane. There in thy scanty mantle clad, thy snowy bosom sunward spread, thou lift'st thy unassuming head in humble guise. But now the share uptears thy bed, and low thou lies. Such is the fate of artless maid, sweet floweret of the rural shade, by love's simplicity betrayed, and guileless trust, till she, like thee, all soiled is laid low in the dust. Such is the fate of simple bard, on life's rough ocean luckless starred, unskilful he to note the card of prudent lore, till billows rage and gales blow hard, and whelm him o'er. Such fate to suffering worth is given, who long with wants and woes has striven, by human pride or cunning driven, to misery's brink, till wrenched of every stay but heaven, he ruined sink. Even thou who mourn'st the daisy's fate, that fate is thine, no distant date. Stern ruin's ploughshare drives elate full on thy bloom, till crushed beneath the furrow's weight shall be thy doom. Robert Burns. End of section 25. Read by Kara Schallenberg on October 19th, 2006, in Oceanside, California. Poems Every Child Should Know. Edited by Mary E. Burt. Section 26. Read for LibriVox.org by Kara Schallenberg. This section contains just one poem, Barbara Frietchie. Part 2 continued. Barbara Frietchie will be beloved of all times because she was an old woman, not necessarily an old lady, worthy of her years. Old age is honorable if it carries a head that has a halo. Up from the meadows rich with corn, clear in the cool September morn, the clustered spires of Frederick stand, green-walled by the hills of Maryland. Round about them orchards sweep, apple and peach tree fruited deep, fair as the garden of the Lord to the eyes of the famished rebel horde. On that pleasant morn of the early fall, when Lee marched over the mountain wall, over the mountains winding down, horse and foot, into Frederick town. 40 flags with their silver stars, 40 flags with their crimson bars, flapped in the morning wind. The sun of noon looked down and saw not one. Up rose old Barbara Frietchie then, bowed with her 80 years and 10. Bravest of all in Frederick town, she took up the flag the men hauled down. In her attic window the staff she set, to show that one heart was loyal yet. Up the street came the rebel tread, Stonewall Jackson riding ahead. Under his slouched hat left and right he glanced, the old flag met his sight. Halt! The dust-brown ranks stood fast. Fire! Out blazed the rifle blast. It shivered the window, pane and sash, it rent the banner with seam and gash. Quick as it fell from the broken staff, Dame Barbara snatched the silken scarf. She leaned far out on the window-sill, and shook it forth with a royal will. "Shoot if you must this old gray head, but spare your country's flag," she said. A shade of sadness, a blush of shame, over the face of the leader came. The nobler nature within him stirred to life at that woman's deed and word. "Who touches a hair of yon gray head dies like a dog. March on," he said. All day long through Frederick Street sounded the tread of marching feet. All day long that free flag tossed over the heads of the rebel host. Even its torn folds rose and fell on the loyal winds that loved it well, and through the hill gaps sunset light shone over it with a warm good night. Barbara Frietchie's work is o'er, and the rebel rides on his raids no more. Honor to her, and let a tear fall for her sake on Stonewall's bier. Over Barbara Frietchie's grave, flag of freedom and union wave. Peace and order and beauty draw round thy symbol of light and law, and ever the stars above look down on thy stars below in Frederick town. John G. Whittier. End of section 26. Read by Kara Schallenberg on October 19th, 2006, in Oceanside, California. Poems Every Child Should Know, edited by Mary E. Burt. Section 27, read for LibriVox.org by Kara Schallenberg. This section contains just one poem, Lochinvar. Part 3, The Days at the Morn. Lochinvar. Lochinvar and Lord Ullin's Daughter, the first by Scott, 1771 to 1832, and the second by Campbell, 1777 to 1844, are companions in sentiment, and equally popular with boys who love to win anything desirable by heroic effort. Oh, young Lochinvar is come out of the west. Through all the wide border his steed was the best, and save his good broadsword he weapons had none. He rode all unarmed, and he rode all alone. So faithful in love and so dauntless in war, there never was knight like the young Lochinvar. He stayed not for brake, and he stopped not for stone. He swam the Esk river where ford there was none. But ere he alighted at Netherby gate, the bride had consented, the gallant came late. For a laggard in love and a dastard in war was to wed the fair Ellen of brave Lochinvar. So boldly he entered the Netherby hall, among bridesmen and kinsmen and brothers and all. Then spoke the bride's father, his hand on his sword, for the poor craven bridegroom said never a word. "Oh, come ye in peace here, or come ye in war, or to dance at our bridal, young Lord Lochinvar? I long wooed your daughter, my suit you denied. Love swells like the Solway, but ebbs like its tide. And now am I come, with this lost love of mine, to lead but one measure, drink one cup of wine. There are maidens in Scotland more lovely by far, that would gladly be bride to the young Lochinvar." The bride kissed the goblet, the knight took it up. He quaffed of the wine, and he threw down the cup. She looked down to blush, and she looked up to sigh, with a smile on her lips and a tear in her eye. He took her soft hand ere her mother could bar. "Now tread we a measure," said young Lochinvar. So stately his form, and so lovely her face, That never a hall such a galliard did grace. While her mother did fret, and her father did fume, And the bridegroom stood dangling his bonnet and plume, And the bride-maidens whispered, "'Twere better by far To have matched our fair cousin with young Lochinvar." One touch to her hand, and one word in her ear, When they reached the hall door, and the charger stood near. So light to the croup the fair lady he swung, So light to the saddle before her he sprung. "She is won! We are gone, over bank, bush, and scaur. They'll have fleet steeds that follow," quoth young Lochinvar. There was mounting 'mong Graemes of the Netherby clan, Forsters, Fenwicks, and Musgraves, they rode and they ran. There was racing and chasing on Cannobie Lee, But the lost bride of Netherby ne'er did they see. So daring in love, and so dauntless in war, have ye e'er heard of gallant like young Lochinvar? Sir Walter Scott. End of section 27, read by Kara Schallenberg on October 20th, 2006, in Oceanside, California. Poems Every Child Should Know, edited by Mary E. Burt. Section 28, read for LibriVox.org by Kara Schallenberg. This section contains two poems, Lord Ullin's Daughter and The Charge of the Light Brigade. Part 3 continued. Lord Ullin's Daughter. A chieftain, to the Highlands bound, Cries, "Boatman, do not tarry, And I'll give thee a silver pound To row us o'er the ferry." Now, who be ye would cross Lochgyle, This dark and stormy water? "Oh, I'm the chief of Ulva's isle, And this Lord Ullin's daughter. And fast before her father's men 3 days we've fled together, For should he find us in the glen, My blood would stain the heather. His horsemen hard behind us ride. Should they our steps discover, Then who will cheer my bonny bride When they have slain her lover?" Out spoke the hardy Highland wight, "I'll go, my chief, I'm ready. It is not for your silver bright, But for your winsome lady. And by my word, the bonny bird In danger shall not tarry. So though the waves are raging white, I'll row you o'er the ferry." By this the storm grew loud apace, the water wraith was shrieking, and in the scowl of heaven each face grew dark as they were speaking. But still as wilder blew the wind, and as the night grew drearer, adown the glen rode armed men, their trampling sounded nearer. "Oh, haste thee, haste!" the lady cries. "Though tempests round us gather, I'll meet the raging of the skies, but not an angry father." The boat has left a stormy land, a stormy sea before her, when, oh, too strong for human hand, the tempest gathered o'er her. And still they rowed amid the roar of waters fast prevailing. Lord Ullin reached that fatal shore, his wrath was changed to wailing. For sore dismayed through storm and shade his child he did discover. One lovely hand she stretched for aid, and one was round her lover. Come back," he cried in grief, "across this stormy water, and I'll forgive your Highland chief, my daughter, oh, my daughter." 'Twas vain the loud waves lashed the shore, return or aid preventing. The waters wild went o'er his child, and he was left lamenting. Thomas Campbell. The Charge of the Light Brigade. The charge of the Light Brigade, unlike Casabianca, shows obedience under stern necessity. Obedience is the salvation of any army. John Burroughs says, "I never hear that poem but what it thrills me through and through." Half a league, half a league, half a league onward, all in the valley of death rode the 600. Forward the Light Brigade! Charge for the guns, he said. Into the valley of death rode the 600. Forward the Light Brigade! Was there a man dismayed? Not though the soldier knew some one had blundered. Theirs not to make reply, theirs not to reason why, theirs but to do and die. Into the valley of death rode the 600. Cannon to right of them, cannon to left of them, cannon in front of them volleyed and thundered. Stormed at with shot and shell, boldly they rode and well. Into the jaws of death, into the mouth of hell rode the 600. Flashed all their sabres bare, flashed as they turned in air, sabring the gunners there, charging an army while all the world wondered. Plunged in the battery smoke, right through the line they broke, Cossack and Russian reeled from the sabre stroke, shattered and sundered. Then they rode back, but not the 600. Cannon to right of them, cannon to left of them, cannon behind them volleyed and thundered. Stormed at with shot and shell, while horse and hero fell. They that had fought so well came through the jaws of death, back from the mouth of hell. All that was left of them, left of 600. When can their glory fade? Oh, the wild charge they made! All the world wondered. Honor the charge they made, honor the Light Brigade, noble 600. Alfred Tennyson. End of section 28. Read by Kara Schallenberg on October 20th, 2006, in Oceanside, California. Poems Every Child Should Know, edited by Mary E. Burt. Section 29, read for LibriVox.org by Kara Schallenberg. This section contains two poems, The Tournament and The Wind and the Moon. Part 3 continued. The Tournament. There are several of Sidney Lanier's poems that children love to learn. Tampa Robins, The Tournament, Joust 1, Barnacles, The Song of the Chattahoochee, and The First Steamboat Up the Alabama are among them. At our poetry contests, the children have plainly demonstrated that this great poet has reached his hand down to the youngest. The time will doubtless come when it will be a part of education to be acquainted with Lanier, as it is now to be acquainted with Longfellow or Tennyson. Bright shone the lists, blue bent the skies, and the knights still hurried amain to the tournament under the ladies' eyes, where the jousters were Heart and Brain. Flourished the trumpets, entered Heart, a youth in crimson and gold. Flourished again, Brain stood apart, steel-armoured, dark and cold. Heart's palfrey caracoled gaily round, Heart trullirod merrily, but Brain sat still with never a sound, so cynical calm was he. Heart's helmet crest bore favours three from his lady's white hand caught, while Brain wore a plumeless casque, not he of favour gave or sought. The trumpet blew, Heart shot a glance to catch his lady's eye, but Brain gazed straight ahead, his lance to aim more faithfully. They charged, they struck, both fell, both bled, Brain rose again ungloved. Heart, dying, smiled and faintly said, "My love to my beloved." Sidney Lanier. The Wind and the Moon. Little laddie, do you remember learning The Wind and the Moon? You were 8 or 9 years old, and you shut your eyes and puffed out your cheeks when you came to the line, "He blew and he blew." The saucy wind made a great racket, and the calm moon never noticed it. That gave you a great deal of pleasure, didn't it? We did not care much for the noisy, conceited wind. Said the wind to the moon, "I will blow you out." You stare in the air like a ghost in a chair, always looking what I am about. I hate to be watched, I'll blow you out. The wind blew hard, and out went the moon. So deep on a heap of clouds to sleep, down lay the wind and slumbered soon, muttering low, "I've done for that moon." He turned in his bed, she was there again, on high in the sky, with her one ghost eye. The moon shone white and alive and plain. Said the wind, "I will blow you out again." The wind blew hard, and the moon grew dim. With my sledge and my wedge I have knocked off her edge. If only I blow right fierce and grim, the creature will soon be dimmer than dim. He blew, and she thinned to a thread. One puff more's enough to blow her to snuff. One good puff more where the last was bred, and glimmer, glimmer, glum will go the thread. He blew a great blast, and the thread was gone. In the air nowhere was a moonbeam bare. Far off and harmless the shy stars shone. Sure and certain the moon was gone. The wind he took to his revels once more. On down in town, like a merry mad clown, he leaped and hallooed with whistle and roar. What's that? The glimmering thread once more! He flew in a rage, he danced and blew, but in vain was the pain of his bursting brain, for still the broader the moon scrap grew. The broader he swelled his big cheeks and blew. Slowly she grew till she filled the night, and shone on her throne in the sky alone, a matchless, wonderful, silvery light, radiant and lovely, the queen of the night. Said the wind, "What a marvel of power am I! With my breath, good faith, I blew her to death. First blew her away right out of the sky, then blew her in. What strength have I?" But the moon, she knew nothing about the affair, for high in the sky, with her one white eye, motionless, miles above the air, she had never heard the great wind blare. George MacDonald. End of section 29. Read by Kara Schallenberg on October 20th, 2006, in Oceanside, California. Poems Every Child Should Know, edited by Mary E. Burt. Section 30, read for LibriVox.org by Kara Schallenberg. This section contains the following poems: Jesus the Carpenter, Letty's Globe, A Dream, and Heaven is Not Reached at a Single Bound. Part 3 continued. Jesus the Carpenter. Jesus the carpenter, same trade as me, strikes a high note in favor of honest toil. Isn't this Joseph's son? Aye, it is he. Joseph the carpenter, same trade as me. I thought as I'd find it, I knew he was here, but my sight's getting queer. I don't know right where as his shed must ha' stood, but often, as I've been a planing my wood, I've took off my hat just with thinking of he at the same work as me. He warn't that set up that he couldn't stoop down and work in the country for folks in the town. And I'll warrant he felt a bit pride, like I've done, at a good job begun. The parson he knows that I'll not make too free, but on Sunday I feels as pleased as can be, when I wears my clean smock and sits in a pew, and has taught a few. I think of as how not the parson hissen, as is teacher and father and shepherd o' men, not he knows as much of the Lord in that shed, where he earned his own bread. And when I goes home to my missus, says she, "Are ye wanting your key?" For she knows my queer ways and my love for the shed. We've been 40 years wed. So I comes right away by mysen with the book, and I turns the old pages and has a good look for the text as I've found, as tell me as he were the same trade as me. Why don't I mark it? Ah, many say so, but I think I'd as lief, with your leaves, let it go. It do seem that nice when I fall on it sudden, unexpected, you know. Catherine C. Liddell. Letty's Globe. Letty's Globe gives us the picture of a little golden-haired girl who covers all Europe with her dainty hands and tresses, while giving a kiss to England, her own dear native land. When Letty had scarce passed her 3rd glad year, and her young artless words began to flow, one day we gave the child a coloured sphere of the wide earth, that she might mark and know by tint and outline all its sea and land. She patted all the world. Old empires peeped between her baby fingers. Her soft hand was welcome at all frontiers. How she leaped and laughed and prattled in her world-wide bliss! But when we turned her sweet unlearned eye on our own isle, she raised a joyous cry. "Oh yes, I see it! Letty's home is there!" And while she hid all England with a kiss, bright over Europe fell her golden hair. Charles Tennyson Turner. A Dream. Once a dream did wave a shade o'er my angel-guarded bed, that an emmet lost its way, when on grass methought I lay. Troubled, wildered, and forlorn, dark, benighted, travel-worn, over many a tangled spray, all heart broke, I heard her say, "Oh, my children, do they cry? Do they hear their father sigh? Now they look abroad to see, now return and weep for me." Pitying, I dropped a tear, but I saw a glowworm near, who replied, "What wailing wight calls the watchman of the night? I am set to light the ground, while the beetle goes his round. Follow now the beetle's hum. Little wanderer, hie thee home." William Blake. Heaven is not reached at a single bound. A fragment. "We build the ladder by which we climb" is a line worthy of any poet. J.G. Holland (1819 1881) has immortalized himself in this line at least. Heaven is not reached at a single bound, but we build the ladder by which we rise from the lowly earth to the vaulted skies, and we mount to its summit round by round. I count this thing to be grandly true, that a noble deed is a step toward God, lifting the soul from the common clod to a purer air and a broader view. J.G. Holland. End of section 30. Read by Kara Schallenberg on October 20th, 2006, in Oceanside, California. Poems Every Child Should Know, edited by Mary E. Burt. Section 31. Read for LibriVox.org by Kara Schallenberg. This section contains just one poem, The Battle of Blenheim. Part 3, continued. The Battle of Blenheim. Have you been to Woodstock, near Oxford, England? If so, you have seen the palace of the Duke of Marlborough, who won the Battle of Blenheim. The main point of the poem is the doubtful honor in killing in our great wars. Southey, the poet, lived from 1774 to 1843. It was a summer's evening, old Kaspar's work was done, and he before his cottage door was sitting in the sun, and by him sported on the green his little grandchild, Wilhelmine. She saw her brother Peterkin roll something large and round, which he beside the rivulet in playing there had found. He came to ask what he had found, that was so large and smooth and round. Old Kaspar took it from the boy, who stood expectant by, and then the old man shook his head, and with a natural sigh, "'Tis some poor fellow's skull," said he, "who fell in the great victory. I find them in the garden, for there's many hereabout, and often when I go to plough, the ploughshare turns them out. For many thousand men," said he, "were slain in that great victory." "Now tell us what 'twas all about, young Peterkin," he cries, and little Wilhelmine looks up with wonder-waiting eyes. "Now tell us all about the war, and what they killed each other for." "It was the English," Kaspar cried, "who put the French to rout, but what they killed each other for I could not well make out. But everybody said," quoth he, "that 'twas a famous victory." "My father lived at Blenheim then, yon little stream hard by. They burned his dwelling to the ground, and he was forced to fly. So with his wife and child he fled, nor had he where to rest his head. With fire and sword the country round was wasted far and wide, and many a childing mother then and new-born baby died. But things like that, you know, must be at every famous victory. They say it was a shocking sight after the field was won, for many thousand bodies here lay rotting in the sun. But things like that, you know, must be after a famous victory. Great praise the Duke of Marlborough won, and our good Prince Eugene." "Why, 'twas a very wicked thing," said little Wilhelmine. "Nay, nay, my little girl," quoth he, "it was a famous victory." And everybody praised the Duke, who this great fight did win. "But what good came of it at last?" quoth little Peterkin. "Why, that I cannot tell," said he, "but 'twas a famous victory." Robert Southey. End of section 31. Read by Kara Schallenberg on October 25th, 2006 in Oceanside, California. Poems Every Child Should Know, edited by Mary E. Burt. Section 32. Read for LibriVox.org by Kara Schallenberg. This section contains two poems, Fidelity and The Chambered Nautilus. Part 3 continued. Fidelity. Fidelity by William Wordsworth (1770 1850) is placed here out of respect to a boy of 11 years who liked the poem well enough to recite it frequently. The scene is laid on Helvellyn, to me the most impressive mountain of the Lake District of England. Wordsworth is a part of this country. I once heard John Burroughs say, "I went to the Lake District to see what kind of a country it could be that would produce a Wordsworth." A barking sound the shepherd hears, a cry as of a dog or fox. He halts and searches with his eyes among the scattered rocks, and now at distance can discern a stirring in a brake of fern, and instantly a dog is seen, glancing through that covert green. The dog is not of mountain breed, its motions too are wild and shy, with something, as the shepherd thinks, unusual in its cry. Nor is there any one in sight, all round in hollow or on height, nor shout nor whistle strikes his ear. What is the creature doing here? It was a cove, a huge recess that keeps till June December's snow, a lofty precipice in front, a silent tarn below. Far in the bosom of Helvellyn, remote from public road or dwelling, pathway or cultivated land, from trace of human foot or hand. There sometimes doth a leaping fish send through the tarn a lonely cheer, the crags repeat the raven's croak in symphony austere. Thither the rainbow comes, the cloud and mists that spread the flying shroud, and sunbeams, and the sounding blast, that if it could would hurry past, but that enormous barrier binds it fast. Not free from boding thoughts awhile the shepherd stood, then makes his way toward the dog, o'er rocks and stones, as quickly as he may. Nor far had gone before he found a human skeleton on the ground. The appalled discoverer with a sigh looks round to learn the history. From those abrupt and perilous rocks the man had fallen, that place of fear. At length upon the shepherd's mind it breaks, and all is clear. He instantly recalled the name, and who he was, and whence he came. Remembered, too, the very day on which the traveller passed this way. But hear a wonder, for whose sake this lamentable tale I tell. A lasting monument of words this wonder merits well. The dog, which still was hovering nigh, repeating the same timid cry, the dog had been through 3 months' space a dweller in that savage place. Yes, proof was plain that since the day when this ill-fated traveller died, the dog had watched about the spot, or by his master's side. How nourished here through such long time, he knows who gave that love sublime, and gave that strength of feeling, great, above all human estimate. William Wordsworth. The Chambered Nautilus. People are more and more coming to recognize the fact that each individual soul has a right to its own stages of development. The Chambered Nautilus is for that reason beloved of the masses. It is one of the grandest poems ever written. Build thee more stately mansions, O my soul. This line alone would make the poem immortal. This is the ship of pearl, which, poets feign, sailed the unshadowed main, the venturous bark that flings on the sweet summer wind its purpled wings, in gulfs enchanted where the siren sings, and coral reefs lie bare, where the cold sea maids rise to sun their streaming hair. Its webs of living gauze no more unfurl, wrecked is the ship of pearl, and every chambered cell where its dim dreaming life was wont to dwell, as the frail tenant shaped his growing shell, before thee lies revealed, its irised ceiling rent, its sunless crypt unsealed. Year after year beheld the silent toil that spread his lustrous coil. Still as the spiral grew, he left the past year's dwelling for the new, stole with soft step its shining archway through, built up its idle door, stretched in his last found home, and knew the old no more. Thanks for the heavenly message brought by thee, child of the wandering sea, cast from her lap forlorn. From thy dead lips a clearer note is born than ever Triton blew from wreathed horn. While on my ear it rings, through the deep caves of thought I hear a voice that sings. Build thee more stately mansions, O my soul, as the swift seasons roll. Leave thy low vaulted past. Let each new temple, nobler than the last, shut thee from heaven with a dome more vast, till thou at length art free, leaving thine outgrown shell by life's unresting sea. Oliver Wendell Holmes. End of section 32. Read by Kara Schallenberg on October 25th, 2006 in Oceanside, California. Poems Every Child Should Know, edited by Mary E. Burt. Section 33, read for LibriVox.org by Kara Schallenberg. This section contains 3 poems, Crossing the Bar, The Overland Mail, and Gathering Song of Donald Dhu. Part 3 continued. Crossing the Bar. Tennyson's Crossing the Bar is one of the noblest death songs ever written. I include it in this volume out of respect to a young Philadelphia publisher who recited it one stormy night before the passengers of a ship when I was crossing the Atlantic, and also because so many young people have the good taste to love it. It has been said that next to Browning's Prospice, It is the greatest death song ever written. Sunset and evening star, and one clear call for me, and may there be no moaning of the bar when I put out to sea. But such a tide as moving seems asleep too full for sound and foam, when that which drew from out the boundless deep turns again home. Twilight and evening bell, and after that the dark, and may there be no sadness of farewell when I embark. For though from out our bourne of time and place the flood may bear me far, I hope to see my pilot face to face when I have crossed the bar. Alfred Tennyson. The Overland Mail. The Overland Mail is a most desirable poem for children to learn. When one boy learns it, the others want to follow. It takes as a hero the man who gives common service, the one who does not lead or command, but follows the line of duty. In the name of the Empress of India, make way, O lords of the jungle, wherever you roam. The woods are astir at the close of the day. We exiles are waiting for letters from home. Let the robber retreat, let the tiger turn tail, in the name of the Empress, the Overland Mail. With a jingle of bells, as the dusk gathers in, he turns to the footpath that leads up the hill, the bags on his back and a cloth round his chin, and tucked in his belt the post-office bill. Dispatched on this date, as received by the rail, per runner 2 bags of the Overland Mail. Is the torrent in spate? He must ford it or swim. Has the rain wrecked the road? He must climb by the cliff. Does the tempest cry, "Halt"? What are tempests to him? The service admits not a but or an if. While the breath's in his mouth, he must bear without fail, in the name of the Empress, the Overland Mail. From aloe to rose oak, from rose oak to fir, from level to upland, from upland to crest, from rice field to rock ridge, from rock ridge to spur, fly the soft sandaled feet, strains the brawny brown chest. From rail to ravine, to the peak from the vale, up, up through the night, goes the Overland Mail. There's a speck on the hillside, a dot on the road, a jingle of bells on the footpath below. There's a scuffle above in the monkey's abode. The world is awake, and the clouds are aglow, for the great sun himself must attend to the hail, in the name of the Empress, the Overland Mail. Rudyard Kipling. Gathering Song of Donald Dhu. John, do you remember when you used to spout "Pibroch of Doniel Dhu"? I think you were 10 years old. Sir Walter Scott's men all have a genius for standing up to their guns, and boys gather up the man's genius when reciting his verse. Pibroch of Doniel Dhu, Pibroch of Doniel, wake thy wild voice anew, summon Clan Conuil. Come away, hark to the summons, come in your war array, gentles and commons. Come from deep glen, and from mountain so rocky, the war pipe and pennon are at Inverlochy. Come every hill plaid and true heart that wears one, come every steel blade and strong hand that bears one. Leave untended the herd, the flock without shelter, leave the corpse uninterred, the bride at the altar. Leave the deer, leave the steer, leave nets and barges, come with your fighting gear, broadswords and targes. Come as the winds come when forests are rended, come as the waves come when navies are stranded. Faster come, faster come, faster and faster, chief, vassal, page and groom, tenant and master. Fast they come, see how they gather. Wide waves the eagle plume, blended with heather. Cast your plaids, draw your blades, forward each man set. Pibroch of Doniel Dhu, knell for the onset. Sir Walter Scott. End of section 33. Read by Kara Schallenberg on October 25th, 2006, in Oceanside, California. Poems Every Child Should Know, edited by Mary E. Burt. Section 34, read for LibriVox.org by Kara Schallenberg. This section contains just one poem, Marco Bozzaris. Part 3 continued. Marco Bozzaris. Marco Bozzaris by Fitzgreen Halleck, 1790 to 1867, was in my old school reader. Boys and girls liked it then, and they like it now. This is another of the poems that was not born to die. At midnight in his guarded tent, the Turk was dreaming of the hour when Greece, her knee in suppliance bent, should tremble at his power. In dreams through camp and court he bore the trophies of a conqueror. In dreams his song of triumph heard, then wore his monarch's signet ring, then pressed that monarch's throne, a king, as wild his thoughts and gay of wing as Eden's garden bird. At midnight in the forest shades Bozzaris ranged his Suliote band, true as the steel of their tried blades, heroes in heart and hand. There had the Persians thousands stood, there had the glad earth drunk their blood, on old Platæa's day. And now there breathed that haunted air the sons of sires who conquered there, with arm to strike and soul to dare, as quick as far as they. An hour passed on, the Turk awoke, that bright dream was his last. He woke to hear his sentries shriek, "To arms! They come! The Greek! The Greek!" He woke to die midst flame and smoke, and shout and groan and sabre stroke, and death-shots falling thick and fast as lightnings from the mountain cloud, and heard, with voice as trumpet loud, Bozzaris cheer his band. "Strike, till the last armed foe expires! Strike for your altars and your fires! Strike for the green graves of your sires, God and your native land!" They fought like brave men long and well, they plied that ground with Moslem slain, they conquered, but Bozzaris fell, bleeding at every vein. His few surviving comrades saw his smile when rang their proud hurrah, and the red field was won; then saw in death his eyelids close, calmly as to a night's repose, like flowers at set of sun. Come to the bridal chamber, Death! Come to the mother's when she feels for the first time her firstborn's breath. Come when the blessed seals that close the pestilence are broke, and crowded cities wail its stroke. Come in consumption's ghastly form, the earthquake shock, the ocean storm. Come when the heart beats high and warm with banquet song and dance and wine, and thou art terrible, the tear, the groan, the knell, the pall, the bier, and all we know or dream or fear of agony are thine. But to the hero, when his sword has won the battle for the free, thy voice sounds like a prophet's word, and in its hollow tones are heard the thanks of millions yet to be. Come when his task of fame is wrought, come with her laurel leaf, blood bought. Come in her crowning hour, and then thy sunken eyes' unearthly light to him is welcome as the sight of sky and stars to prisoned men. Thy grasp is welcome as the hand of brother in a foreign land. Thy summons welcome as the cry that told the Indian Isles were nigh, to the world-seeking Genoese. When the land wind from woods of palm and orange groves and fields of balm blew o'er the Haytian seas. Bozzaris, with the storied brave, Greece nurtured in her glory's time, rest thee, there is no prouder grave, even in her own proud clime. She wore no funeral weeds for thee, nor bade the dark hearse wave its plume, like torn branch from death's leafless tree, in sorrow's pomp and pageantry. The heartless luxury of the tomb, but she remembers thee as one, long loved and for a season gone. For thee her poet's lyre is wreathed, her marble wrought, her music breathed. For thee she rings the birthday bells, of thee her babe's first lisping tells. For thine her evening prayer is said at palace couch and cottage bed. Her soldier, closing with the foe, gives for thy sake a deadlier blow. His plighted maiden, when she fears for him the joy of her young years, thinks of thy fate and checks her tears. And she, the mother of thy boys, though in her eye and faded cheek is read the grief, she will not speak the memory of her buried joys. And even she, who gave thee birth, will by their pilgrim-circled hearth talk of thy doom without a sigh. For thou art Freedom's now and Fame's, one of the few, the immortal names that were not born to die. Fitzgreen Halleck. End of section 34. Read by Kara Schallenberg on October 25th, 2006, in Oceanside, California. Poems Every Child Should Know, edited by Mary E. Burt. Section 35. Read for LibriVox.org by Kara Schallenberg. This section contains the following poems: The Death of Napoleon, How Sleep the Brave, The Flag Goes By, Hohenlinden, and My Old Kentucky Home. Part 3 continued. The Death of Napoleon. The Death of Napoleon by Isaac McClellan, 1806-1899, was yet another of the good old reader songs taught us by a teacher of good taste. We love those teachers more the older we grow. Wild was the night, yet a wilder night hung round the soldier's pillow. In his bosom there waged a fiercer fight than the fight on the wrathful billow. A few fond mourners were kneeling by, the few that his stern heart cherished. They knew by his glazed and unearthly eye that life had nearly perished. They knew by his awful and kingly look, by the order hastily spoken, that he dreamed of days when the nations shook, and the nations' hosts were broken. He dreamed that the Frenchman's sword still slew, and triumphed the Frenchman's eagle, and the struggling Austrian fled anew like the hare before the beagle. The bearded Russian he scourged again, the Prussian's camp was routed, and again on the hills of haughty Spain his mighty armies shouted. Over Egypt's sands, over Alpine snows, at the pyramids, at the mountain, where the wave of the lordly Danube flows, and by the Italian fountain. On the snowy cliffs where mountain streams dash by the Switzer's dwelling, he led again, in his dying dreams, his hosts, the proud earth quelling. Again Marengo's field was won, and Jena's bloody battle. Again the world was overrun, made pale at his cannon's rattle. He died at the close of that darksome day, a day that shall live in story. In the rocky land they placed his clay, and left him alone with his glory. Isaac McClellan. How sleep the brave! How sleep the brave who sink to rest, by all their country's wishes blest, when spring with dewy fingers cold returns to deck their hallowed mould, she there shall dress a sweeter sod than fancy's feet have ever trod. By fairy hands their knell is rung, by forms unseen their dirge is sung. Their honor comes, a pilgrim gray, to bless the turf that wraps their clay, and freedom shall a while repair, to dwell a weeping hermit there. William Collins. The Flag Goes By. The Flag Goes By is included out of regard to a boy of 11 years who pleased me by his great appreciation of it. It teaches the lesson of reverence to our great national symbol. It is published by permission of the author, Henry Holcomb Bennett, of Ohio. Hats off! Along the street there comes a blare of bugles, a ruffle of drums, a flash of color beneath the sky. Hats off! The flag is passing by. Blue and crimson and white it shines over the steel-tipped ordered lines. Hats off! The colors before us fly. But more than the flag is passing by. Sea fights and land fights, grim and great, fought to make and to save the state. Weary marches and sinking ships, cheers of victory on dying lips. Days of plenty and years of peace, march of a strong land's swift increase. Equal justice, right and law, stately honor and reverend awe. Sign of a nation great and strong, toward her people from foreign wrong. Pride and glory and honor, all live in the colors to stand or fall. Hats off! Along the street there comes a blare of bugles, a ruffle of drums, and loyal hearts are beating high. Hats off! The flag is passing by. Henry Holcomb Bennett. Hohenlinden. On Linden, when the sun was low, all bloodless lay the untrodden snow, and dark as winter was the flow of Iser, rolling rapidly. But Linden saw another sight, when the drum beat at dead of night, commanding fires of death to light the darkness of her scenery. By torch and trumpet fast arrayed, each horseman drew his battle blade, and furious every charger neighed to join the dreadful revelry. Then shook the hills with thunder riven, then rushed the steed to battle driven, and louder than the bolts of heaven far flashed the red artillery. But redder yet that light shall glow on Linden's hills o'er stained snow, and bloodier yet the torrent flow of Iser, rolling rapidly. 'Tis morn, but scarce yon level sun can pierce the war clouds rolling dun, where furious Frank and fiery Hun shout in their sulphurous canopy. The combat deepens. On, ye brave, who rush to glory o'er the grave! Wave, Munich, all thy banners wave, and charge with all thy chivalry. Few, few shall part where many meet, the snow shall be their winding sheet, and every turf beneath their feet shall be a soldier's sepulchre. Thomas Campbell. My Old Kentucky Home. The sun shines bright in the old Kentucky home. 'Tis summer, the darkies are gay. The corn tops ripe and the meadows in the bloom, while the birds make music all the day. The young folks roll on the little cabin floor, all merry, all happy and bright. By and by hard times comes a knockin' at the door. Then, my old Kentucky home, good night. Weep no more, my lady, oh, weep no more to-day. We will sing one song for the old Kentucky home, for the old Kentucky home far away. They hunt no more for the 'possum and the coon, on the meadow, the hill, and the shore. They sing no more by the glimmer of the moon, on the bench by the old cabin door. The day goes by like a shadow o'er the heart, with sorrow where all was delight. The time has come when the darkies have to part. Then, my old Kentucky home, good night. The head must bow and the back will have to bend, wherever the darky may go. A few more days and the trouble all will end, in the field where the sugar canes grow. A few more days for to tote the weary load, no matter, 'twill never be light. A few more days till we totter on the road. Then, my old Kentucky home, good night. Weep no more, my lady, oh, weep no more to-day. We will sing one song for the old Kentucky home, for the old Kentucky home far away. Stephen Collins Foster. End of section 35. Read by Kara Schallenberg on October 25th, 2006 in Oceanside, California. Poems Every Child Should Know, edited by Mary E. Burt. Section 36. Read for LibriVox.org by Kara Schallenberg. This section contains two poems, Old Folks at Home and The Wreck of the Hesperus. Part 3 continued. Old Folks at Home. Way down upon the Swanee River, far, far away, there's where my heart is turning eber, there's where the old folks stay. All up and down the whole creation, sadly I roam, still longing for the old plantation, and for the old folks at home. All the world am sad and dreary, everywhere I roam. Oh, darkies, how my heart grows weary, far from the old folks at home. All round the little farm I wandered, when I was young. Then many happy days I squandered, many the songs I sung. When I was playing wid my brudder, happy was I. Oh, take me to my kind old mudder, there let me live and die. One little hut among the bushes, one that I love, still sadly to my memory rushes, no matter where I rove. When will I see the bees a humming all round the comb? When will I hear the banjo tumming down in my good old home? All the world am sad and dreary everywhere I roam. Oh, darkies, how my heart grows weary, far from the old folks at home. Stephen Collins Foster. The Wreck of the Hesperus. The Wreck of the Hesperus by Longfellow, 1807 to 1882, on Norman's Woe off the coast near Cape Ann, is a historic poem as well as an imaginative composition. It was the schooner Hesperus that sailed the wintry sea, and the skipper had taken his little daughter to bear him company. Blue were her eyes as the fairy flax, her cheeks like the dawn of day, and her bosom white as the hawthorn buds that ope in the month of May. The skipper he stood beside the helm, his pipe was in his mouth, and he watched how the veering flaw did blow, the smoke now west, now south. Then up and spake an old sailor, had sailed the Spanish Main. "I pray thee put into yonder port, for I fear a hurricane. Last night the moon had a golden ring, and to-night no moon we see." The skipper he blew a whiff from his pipe, and a scornful laugh laughed he. Colder and louder blew the wind, a gale from the northeast. The snow fell hissing in the brine, and the billows frothed like yeast. Down came the storm, and smote amain the vessel in its strength. She shuddered and paused like a frightened steed, then leaped her cable's length. Come hither, my little daughter, and do not tremble so, for I can weather the roughest gale that ever wind did blow." He wrapped her warm in his seaman's cloak against the stinging blast. He cut a rope from a broken spar, and bound her to the mast. "O father, I hear the church bells ring, oh say, what may it be?" "'Tis a fog bell on a rock-bound coast," and he steered for the open sea. "O father, I hear the sound of guns, oh say, what may it be?" "Some ship in distress that cannot live in such an angry sea." "O father, I see a gleaming light, oh say, what may it be?" But the father answered never a word, a frozen corpse was he. Lashed to the helm all stiff and stark, with his face turned to the skies, the lantern gleamed through the gleaming snow on his fixed and glassy eyes. Then the maiden clasped her hands and prayed that saved she might be, and she thought of Christ who stilled the wave on the lake of Galilee. And fast through the midnight dark and drear, through the whistling sleet and snow, like a sheeted ghost the vessel swept toward the reef of Norman's Woe. And ever the fitful gusts between, a sound came from the land. It was the sound of the trampling surf on the rocks and the hard sea sand. The breakers were right beneath her bows, she drifted a dreary wreck, and a whooping billow swept the crew like icicles from her deck. She struck where the white and fleecy waves looked soft as carded wool, but the cruel rocks they gored her side like the horns of an angry bull. Her rattling shrouds all sheathed in ice, with the masts went by the board. Like a vessel of glass she stove and sank, ho, ho, the breakers roared. At daybreak on the bleak sea beach a fisherman stood aghast, to see the form of a maiden fair, lashed close to a drifting mast. The salt sea was frozen on her breast, the salt tears in her eyes, and he saw her hair like the brown seaweed on the billows fall and rise. Such was the wreck of the Hesperus in the midnight and the snow. Christ save us all from a death like this on the reef of Norman's Woe. Henry W. Longfellow. End of section 36. Read by Kara Schallenberg on October 26, 2006, in Oceanside, California.